All right, Math 7, we are going to be moving on in our exploration into two-step equations. We've done some work with word problems on some of those worksheets, but now that's going to be our main focus. These are the types of situations you're going to see in the real world. So these are very important. So that's why we're designating kind of this amount of time to it. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, well, we're going to just start with an example. So the example is 331 students attend a school field trip. 6 buses were full of the same number of students, and 7 students traveled by car. How many students were on each bus? All right, so let's get started. Step 1, we need to identify the unknown quantity in the problem and assign it a variable. So, what is our unknown? What are we trying to figure out? Well, we are trying to figure out, we are trying to figure out how many students are on each bus. That's what we're trying to figure out. So let's just call it n. So I'm going to define it as x equals number students on the bus. All right, so there we go. It's going to be our x. Let's move down. Determine the necessary operations to solve the problem. Okay, so now let's look again at what it says up here. So it says, see, we have 31 students attended the field trip. We know that much right there. 6 buses were full with the same number of students, and then 7 students traveled by car. So there's the important information that we need to figure out this problem. I like to kind of highlight it and get rid of all the other stuff I don't need to pay attention to. So let's look. We have 331 students, attended the field trip to begin with. So no matter what, we have 331 students. 7 of those students traveled by car. So we're trying to figure out this x right here, and 7 traveled by car. We don't need to worry about them, so they're going to be right here. Let's just put them. That's a constant. No matter what, no matter how many students are on the bus, 7 of them traveled by car. But those 7 plus the number of students on buses, that's our x. And then we had 6 buses. So however many students are on each bus, we need to multiply that by 6 because that's how many buses we have. So there we go. There's our equation right there. We talked it through. We have total number of students in a car, and then our number of students on each of the 6 buses. So we wrote our equation, and now let's solve for the variable. Let's go ahead and extend this page. So we have 331 equals 7 plus 6x. All right, we're solving for x. We want to get x by itself. Isolate this one right here. So let's get rid of this 7. Subtract 7. Subtract 7. That should give us excuse me, I had another student walk into the room. So where were we? 331 minus 7, that'll give us 324. It's equal to 6x. So we have 324 students that are on the bus because we got rid of those 7 students driving a car. We're going to split them up into 6 equal groups. So we'll divide them by 6. Divide them by 6. And we are left with, I believe it should be 54 students per bus. And we can go ahead and check that. If we plug in 54 for 6, that should give us 324. 324 plus 7, 331. So there we go. We have solved the mystery of how many students are on each bus. So example 2 says we bought a magazine for $4 and 5 erasers, which each cost the same amount. And total, altogether, we spent $5.50. So what was the cost of each eraser? So why don't you now pause the video and go through and see if you can figure that out. Okay, see, now I have gone ahead and highlighted in yellow what we're trying to define. We got, I'm going to do x equals, that's the how much cost of erasers. So there we go. That's our cost of erasers. And then in green, I highlighted all the other important information that we're going to need. So we got a magazine for $4, 5 erasers, and a total of $5.50. So let's go ahead. Let's take that information and let's put it into equation. So I know whatever else happens, I spent $5.50. That's my total. $5.50. And I spent $4 on a magazine. I know that much. One magazine cost me $4 alone. And then there's those 5 erasers, which I don't know how much those cost. So 5 times x, which is the cost of an eraser. Now let's work backwards. We want to isolate 5x. So we're going to subtract 4. Because we know we didn't spend that on the erasers, so we're going to subtract 4. Be left with $1.50 left over. So we got $1.50. I spent $1.50 on 5 erasers. Now I want to figure out how much each of them costs. So I'm going to divide both by 5. $1.50 divided by 5 should be equal to, my erasers cost 30 cents each. I can go back and I can check it. 5 times 30 cents should be $1.50 plus 4, $5.50. So there we go. Another word problem debunked. Figured it out. All right. Once again, here's another one. The student spent half of her weekly allowance on music downloads. To earn money, her parents let her wash their car for $4. At the end of the week, she had $12. How much money does the student earn as her allowance? So I'm going to go ahead and pause it, and I'll come back. We'll have it highlighted again, and then we'll talk it through. But how about you pause the video right now and go ahead and see if you can work this one out on your own. All right, so once again, I've highlighted in yellow what we're trying to figure out. We want to figure out what her allowance is. So x is going to equal the allowance. And then in green, I highlighted the other information we're going to need to write this equation. So we know that she spent half of her allowance on downloads. And then her parents gave her the car. And at the end of the week, she had $12 left over. So let's go ahead. Let's figure this out. So we know at the end of the week, she has $12 left over. And so part of those $12 was the $4 that her parents gave her to wash their car. So whatever is left is going to be what she didn't pay in her what she didn't spend her allowance on downloads. So we know there's her allowance. Whatever's left, she already spent half of it. So we're going to divide her allowance by 2. So $4 plus half of her allowance gave her $12. So now let's work backwards. We want to isolate this right there. So what are we going to do first? Well, we're going to subtract 4, get rid of that from both sides, because we know those $4 weren't part of her allowance. So take those $4 away from the 12. We're left with 8. So half of her allowance equaled 8. Well, we want to figure out how much her entire allowance was. So instead of dividing her allowance that by 2, we're going to multiply it by 2. So that's going to cancel that out. Multiply this by 2. We're going to get 16. So she gets $16 of allowance a week. $16. We can plug that back in. We can say, okay, let's see. Said she spent half of her allowance on downloads. Let's divide 16 by 2. We'll have 8. What's 8 plus 4? 8 plus 4 is 12. There we go. We figured it out. So the key for solving these 2-step word problems is just talk it through. Figure out first what we're trying to figure out, what the question is asking, this part in yellow. So figure that out first. Define it. X is the allowance in this case. And then go back and what is the other relevant information in there that we need to set up this equation and solve for that unknown. All right. So that is the video. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you on Monday.